Standing in my childhood driveway at 11 p.m., rain soaking through my jacket, I had no idea that knocking on my parents' door would trigger the most brutal psychological warfare I'd ever experienced. My suitcase felt heavier with each step, not because of clothes, but because of the weight of what I was about to discover about the people who raised me. The porch light flickered on. Footsteps inside. The door creaked open, and there she was, my mother, the woman who used to check for monsters under my bed, now looking directly at me with eyes that held nothing. No anger, no disappointment, just emptiness, like I was a stranger asking for directions. She called over her shoulder to my father, "Honey, there's no one at the door," and started to close it. On me, her own child, standing there in the rain with nowhere else to go. But here's the thing about being erased by your own family. It doesn't just hurt. It awakens something dangerous, something calculating. Because when love turns to silence, silence can turn to something much, much worse. What happened next wasn't just about survival. It was about showing them exactly what they chose to throw away. And trust me, by the end of the story, they would remember my name. My name is Natalie Brooks, and for 26 years, I had been living in the shadow of their perfect son. You know the type, the golden child who could do no wrong while I was the afterthought, the one they'd compare everything to him. Growing up, family dinners were like watching a one-man show where Marcus was the star and I was the understudy nobody remembered to call. His baseball trophies dominated the living room shelves. My academic achievements got a polite nod and a spot in the junk drawer. When he brought girlfriends home, Mom would cook elaborate meals and Dad would share embarrassing childhood stories. When I brought friends over, they'd order pizza and disappear upstairs. The pattern was so consistent it became background noise. Marcus graduated summa cum laude, celebration party with extended family. I graduated with honors, a card with $20 inside. Marcus got engaged. Mom cried tears of joy and immediately started planning. I got my master's degree. They forgot to show up to the ceremony. But that rainy Thursday night, everything felt different. I'd finally done it. After years of struggling, of proving myself, of fighting for scraps of their attention, I had landed the marketing director position at Henderson and Associates. 6-figure salary, corner office, my own team. This was it. This was my moment to finally be seen. The entire drive from Atlanta to their house in Marietta, I practiced my announcement. How I'd casually mention the promotion over dinner, how their faces would change when they realized their forgotten daughter had actually made something of herself. Maybe for once, Mom would call her sister to brag about me instead of Marcus. Maybe Dad would finally ask me about my life instead of immediately pivoting to sports scores. I'd even stopped at Target to buy a bottle of their favorite wine, the expensive kind they only brought out for special occasions. Tonight was going to be special. Tonight, I was going to matter. 3 years had passed since our last real conversation. 3 years since the fight about my irresponsible life choices and my lack of direction. I'd given them space, worked on myself, built a career, became the person they always said I should be. This was my comeback story, my redemption arc. Or so I thought. 2 weeks before that night, Marcus had called me. Actually called me. We hadn't spoken in months, so when his name flashed on my screen, I almost didn't answer. Nat. His voice was unusually warm, almost friendly. Listen, Mom and Dad are planning this huge family trip to the Bahamas for their 30th anniversary. They want everyone there. You, me, Jessica, the kids. Like old times, you know? They specifically asked me to invite you. My heart jumped. They wanted me there. They specifically asked for me. It's next weekend, Marcus continued. Mom's been talking about it nonstop. She said, and I quote, "It won't be the same without Natalie. You should come by Friday night so we can all leave together Saturday morning." Like a real family reunion. For the first time in years, I felt wanted, needed, essential to their happiness instead of optional. I cleared my entire schedule. Took vacation days I'd been saving for months. Bought new clothes for the trip, sundresses, swimwear, even a fancy dinner outfit for what I imagined would be romantic family dinners on the beach. I packed like I was going to meet royalty, choosing every item carefully, wanting to look successful, put together, worthy of being their daughter again. The drive to their house felt like redemption. Finally, we were going to be a real family. Finally, I was going to be part of something instead of watching from the outside. I pictured us laughing on the plane, building sandcastles with Marcus's kids, sharing inside jokes over tropical cocktails. I pulled into their driveway at exactly 9 p.m., just as Marcus had suggested. Their house was blazing with lights, and I could see silhouettes moving around inside. My heart was pounding with excitement as I grabbed my suitcase and the bottle of wine I'd brought to celebrate. 3 steps to the front door felt like 3 miles. I knocked, practically bouncing on my toes with anticipation. The porch light clicked on. Footsteps approached. The door opened, and there was Mom wearing the blue sweater I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. She looked directly at me, her eyes scanning my face, my suitcase, the wine in my hands. And then something died behind her eyes. "Oh," she said, her voice flat as roadkill. She turned her head back toward the house and called out, "Honey, there's someone at the door selling something." My smile froze. "Mom, it's me. Natalie. I'm here for the trip." She looked back at me with the same expression she'd give a telemarketer. Complete blank confusion, like I was speaking a foreign language. "I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong house," she said, already starting to close the door. "Mom, stop." I stepped forward, my voice cracking. "Marcus called me. The Bahamas trip. You asked for me specifically." The door stopped moving, but she didn't open it wider. Behind her, I could hear Dad's voice. "Who is it, Linda?" "Nobody important," Mom replied, never breaking eye contact with me. "Just someone confused about addresses." The words hit me like a physical punch. Nobody important. I stood there, rain starting to drizzle, watching my mother, the woman who taught me to ride a bike, who kissed my scraped knees, who used to braid my hair, look at me like I was nothing. Not even worth acknowledging. Not even worth the courtesy you'd give a stranger. "Please," I whispered, and I hated how small my voice sounded. "I cleared my schedule. I bought clothes. I'm packed for the trip." She tilted her head slightly, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "I think you're confused, dear. We don't know you." That's when I saw him. Marcus, walking up behind her, stopping when he spotted me. Our eyes met for just a second, and I saw something flicker across his face. Guilt, maybe, or satisfaction. He looked away immediately and said to Mom, "Everything okay? We need to finish packing if we're leaving early tomorrow." Tomorrow! They were leaving tomorrow. Without me. Without even the decency to tell me I was never invited in the first place. I stood in that doorway for what felt like hours but was probably only 30 seconds, waiting for the punchline, waiting for someone to break character and laugh, waiting for this to be some twisted joke. It wasn't. Mom gave me one final look, polite, distant, the kind you give to door-to-door salespeople, and said, "Have a nice evening," before closing the door with a soft, definitive click. I stood there in the growing rain, designer suitcase at my feet, expensive wine in my hands, wearing the dress I'd carefully chosen to make them proud of me. I could hear them inside, talking and laughing, continuing their evening like nothing had happened, like I had never existed. That's when I realized the truth that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. This wasn't spontaneous cruelty. This was planned, calculated. They had coordinated this rejection like a military operation, and I was the enemy they decided to eliminate. The rain soaked through my dress, but I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't understand how the people who created me could erase me so completely, so effortlessly, with such casual precision. 26 years of being their daughter, and they deleted me like a spam email. I drove home that night in complete silence. No music, no phone calls, no crying, just the sound of rain on my windshield and the steady rhythm of my heart slowly hardening into something unrecognizable. For 26 years, I had begged for their attention, pleaded for their approval, fought for scraps of their love like a starving dog. But standing in that doorway, watching my own mother look through me like I was made of glass, something fundamental shifted inside me. I was done begging. I pulled into my apartment complex at 2 a.m., carried my unpacked suitcase upstairs, and made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to call them. I wasn't going to text Marcus demanding explanations. I wasn't going to show up at their door with tears and accusations. I was going to disappear. Not the way they wanted me to, quietly, shamefully, like a problem that solved itself. I was going to disappear completely, strategically, in a way that would make them feel exactly what they had put me through. Monday morning came. My phone stayed silent. Tuesday passed without a single message. Wednesday brought nothing but the sound of my own thoughts getting clearer and clearer. I started journaling, something I hadn't done since high school. Page after page of everything I'd never said. Every moment I'd minimize myself to make room for their comfort. Every time I'd apologize for existing in their space. Day 3, I wrote. They're probably back from the Bahamas now. Probably posting pictures on social media of their perfect family vacation. I wonder if anyone asked where I was. I wonder if they even noticed the empty space where I should have been. I didn't check their social media. I didn't need to. I could picture it perfectly. Marcus's kids building sandcastles, Mom and Dad holding hands on the beach, everyone smiling like they'd never been more complete. But here's the thing about silence, it's not passive. It's the loudest thing in the world when it comes from someone who used to make noise. By Thursday, my phone started buzzing. Not with calls or texts, but with notifications. Marcus had liked an old photo of mine from 6 months ago. Mom had viewed my LinkedIn profile. Dad had somehow found and followed my Instagram, something he'd never done in his life. I ignored them all. Day 5, I wrote. They're starting to notice. They're checking up on me digitally, probably confused why I haven't called to thank them for the misunderstanding or beg for forgiveness for whatever crime I committed by existing. The silence was working. I could feel it in the desperate little digital breadcrumbs they kept leaving, the late-night profile views, the random likes on photos from months ago, the way Marcus's wife, Jessica, suddenly started watching every single one of my Instagram stories. Friday night, my phone rang. Marcus. I watched it vibrate on my coffee table, his name flashing on the screen like a neon sign I had no intention of following. It went to voicemail. He didn't leave one. He called again an hour later. This time he left a message. Hey Nat, it's me. Just checking in. Haven't heard from you in a while. Call me back when you get this. I deleted it without finishing it. Saturday brought 3 more calls. 2 from Marcus, 1 from a number I didn't recognize but suspected was Mom calling from Dad's phone. I let them all go to voicemail. This time, Mom left a message. Natalie, it's your mother. We're wondering where you've been. Could you call us back, please? There seems to be some kind of confusion about last weekend. Confusion. Like my heart breaking in their driveway was just a simple misunderstanding that could be cleared up with a phone call. Day 7, I wrote that night. The more I say nothing, the louder the truth becomes. They can feel the empty space I used to fill with my desperation for their love. They're starting to realize that the daughter who always came running when they called isn't running anymore. They created the silence when they pretended I didn't exist. Now they get to live in it. I was learning something powerful about disappearing. When you do it right, people notice. When you stop chasing them, they start wondering why the chase has ended. When you stop begging for their attention, they finally start paying attention to your absence. The week of silence wasn't punishment. It was clarity. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't performing for their approval or apologizing for disappointing them. I was just nothing. And somehow, nothing felt like everything. But this was only the beginning. Silence was just the first move in a game they didn't even know they were playing yet. Week 2 of silence brought something I hadn't expected: financial clarity. Sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop open, I started calculating exactly how much of my life I'd been funding. The automatic payments I'd set up over the years, the small favors that had become routine, the ways I tried to buy my way into their affection without even realizing it. Mom's car payment. I'd been covering it for 3 years after Dad's hours got cut, a temporary solution that became permanent when they never brought it up again. $467, automatically deducted from my account every month like a tax on being their daughter. Dad's subscription to that premium sports package he claimed he couldn't live without. $49.99 a month, because apparently loving football was more important than budgeting for it. The home security system I'd installed after their break-in scare 2 years ago. $85 monthly, because their safety mattered more to me than my own savings account. Marcus's kids' birthday and Christmas presents. I was always the aunt who went overboard, spending hundreds trying to buy love from children who barely knew my name because their parents never mentioned me unless they needed something. The family phone plan I'd added them to when they were struggling with bills. $120 a month to stay connected to people who pretended I didn't exist. In total, I'd been bleeding $800 a month trying to purchase a place in a family that had already voted me out. I canceled every single one. The car payment cancellation would hit first. Mom would get a notice in 3 days that the automatic payment had failed. Then Dad would lose his precious football channels. The security system would shut off with a polite but firm notice about insufficient funds. Their phones would start getting restricted when the family plan payment bounced. But I wasn't done. I opened my laptop and started researching trips to the Bahamas. The same resort they just returned from, the same presidential suite Marcus had posted pictures of on Instagram. I booked 5 days, upgraded everything, and made sure to schedule it for the weekend of Dad's birthday. The birthday I'd never missed, the one where I always organized the family dinner and paid for the entire celebration. While I was booking, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus's wife, Jessica. "Hey, Nat. Haven't seen you around lately. Are you okay? The kids keep asking where Aunt Natalie is." The kids keep asking. Right. The same kids who'd never hugged me back, who'd never thanked me for gifts, who'd been taught to see me as the eccentric aunt who tried too hard. Now suddenly they were asking where I was. I didn't reply. 2 days later, the calls started coming in rapid succession. First, Mom. "Natalie, there seems to be an issue with my car payment. The bank says it was declined. Could you call me back? There must be some kind of error." An error. Like 3 years of me covering their expenses was just a clerical mistake that needed fixing. Then Dad. "Natalie, your old man here. My TV channels got cut off today, right in the middle of the game. Can you check on that when you get a chance? Thanks, kiddo." Kiddo. Now I was kiddo. 2 weeks ago I was nobody important. Now I was kiddo. The security company called Mom directly when their payment failed. She left me a frantic voicemail. "Natalie, I don't understand what's happening. First the car, now the security system is shutting off. Are you having financial problems? We can help if you need us to." They could help. The people who'd been living off my generosity for years were offering to help me. Marcus called that evening, his voice tighter than before. "Nat, Mom's freaking out about all these payment issues. She thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. Can you just call her back and sort this out? You're scaring her." I was scaring her. Me, the daughter she pretended not to recognize, was now scary because her free ride was ending. I finally answered the phone on Thursday, exactly 2 weeks after their Bahamas trip. "Hello, Marcus." "Jesus. Nat, where have you been? Mom's been worried sick. All your payments are getting declined, and nobody can reach you. What's going on?" Nothing's going on, I said, my voice steady as granite. I'm just not paying for things anymore. Silence on his end. What do you mean you're not paying for things? I mean I'm not Mom's car payment anymore. I'm not Dad's entertainment budget. I'm not your children's Christmas fund. I'm not the family ATM. Natalie, come on, don't be dramatic. If you're having money problems, I'm not having money problems, Marcus. I'm having family problems. Specifically, problems with a family that pretends I don't exist until they need my credit card number. Another pause. Longer this time. Look, about that night you came by, there was some confusion. No confusion, I interrupted. Mom looked me in the eye and told Dad there was nobody at the door. You stood behind her and watched it happen. There was no confusion. There was a choice. You all chose to erase me, so I'm returning the favor. Natalie, you're being ridiculous. It wasn't personal. It was completely personal, Marcus. And now my response is completely personal, too. I'm going to the Bahamas next weekend. Same resort you went to. Presidential suite. Dad's birthday weekend. I'll make sure to post lots of pictures of my perfect solo vacation. The silence stretched, so long I thought the call had dropped. You can't just... Nat, Dad's birthday dinner is that weekend. You always organize it. Not anymore. You'll figure something out. You're the golden child, remember? I'm sure you can handle planning a birthday party without the daughter who doesn't exist. This is insane. You're acting like a child. No, Marcus. A child begs and cries and fights for attention. I'm acting like an adult who finally learned her worth. And apparently, I was worth $800 a month to this family. Funny how your memories improve when the money stops flowing. I hung up before he could respond. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Mom, Dad, Marcus, even Jessica, all suddenly desperate to reach the daughter who'd been invisible to them 3 weeks earlier. But I was already at the airport, boarding a plane to the same paradise they'd excluded me from, carrying only what I needed and leaving behind 26 years of begging for crumbs from people who saw me as nothing more than a convenient bank account. For the first time in my life, the Bahamas were everything they'd promised to be. Crystal blue water, endless sunshine, room service that didn't come with guilt trips. I posted one picture, just one, of my feet propped up on the balcony railing of the presidential suite, ocean stretching endlessly in front of me. The caption read, "Sometimes the best family vacations are the ones you take alone." I didn't tag anyone. I didn't need to. Within an hour, it had 12 likes from extended family members and 3 comments asking where I was. By evening, my phone was buzzing nonstop with calls I continued to ignore. When I returned home Sunday night, tanned and genuinely relaxed for the first time in years, I found 17 missed calls and a voicemail box that was completely full. I deleted them all without listening. Monday morning brought something different. A knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Mom standing on my doorstep, holding a bakery box and wearing the expression of someone who'd been forced to eat humble pie and found it surprisingly bitter. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Natalie," she said, and her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Can we talk? We're talking now." She shifted the bakery box from one hand to the other. "I brought your favorite, those lemon bars from Rosemary's Bakery." I looked at the box but didn't take it. "Those are Marcus's favorites, Mom. I'm allergic to lemon." Her face crumpled slightly. "Oh, I thought. You thought wrong. About a lot of things, apparently." She stood there for a long moment, the weight of 26 years of not really knowing me settling between us like fog. "Natalie, there's been a misunderstanding." "Stop." My voice was calm, controlled, nothing like the desperate daughter who used to beg for her attention. There was no misunderstanding. You looked at me and told Dad nobody was at the door. Marcus watched it happen. You planned a family vacation and specifically excluded me, then had Marcus lie to get me out of the way while you enjoyed your perfect family time. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. And now you're here because your car got repossessed yesterday, isn't it? The color drained from her face. How did you? Because I know you, Mom. You're not here because you missed me. You're here because the bank called about the missed payments, and you realized your safety net is gone. She tried to straighten up, to find some dignity in the situation. We raised you better than this, Natalie. Family doesn't abandon family over money. I almost laughed. Almost. You're right. Family doesn't abandon family. But what you did to me that night wasn't about family. It was about erasing someone who'd become inconvenient to your perfect narrative. And what I'm doing now isn't about money. It's about self-respect. We want you back, she said, and for the first time, there were tears in her eyes. We miss you. No, Mom. You miss my bank account. You miss having someone to call when things go wrong. You miss having a backup plan that never asked questions or demanded equal treatment. She opened her mouth to argue, but I kept talking. Do you know what I realized while I was sitting on that beach? I spent 26 years trying to earn something you were never willing to give. I paid for the privilege of being tolerated, and even that wasn't enough to get me a seat at your table. Natalie, please. I'm not angry anymore, I said, and I meant it. Anger is what I felt when you closed that door on me. This is something else. This is clarity. What do you want from us? She asked, and I could hear the desperation creeping in. I want you to understand that the daughter who used to chase your approval is gone. I want you to know that I'm not your emergency fund anymore, I'm not your guilt-driven gift giver, and I'm not your backup family member who shows up when it's convenient for you. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in thin black streams. I want you to remember this feeling, I continued. This feeling of needing someone who doesn't need you back. This feeling of realizing you threw away something valuable because you thought it would always be there waiting for you. We can fix this, she whispered. We can be a real family. We could have been 26 years ago when I was born, or 18 years ago when I graduated high school, or 6 years ago when I got my master's degree, or 3 weeks ago when I knocked on your door with a suitcase and hope in my heart. I stepped back from the doorway. But not today, Mom. Today you're just someone who used to know me, standing on my doorstep, holding the wrong pastries and making promises you should have made decades ago. I closed the door softly, not with anger, but with finality. Through the window, I watched her stand there for 5 full minutes, holding that bakery box, probably waiting for me to change my mind and come running after her like I always had before. But I didn't. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat in my living room, listening to the sound of her footsteps, finally retreating down the hallway. The revenge I dreamed of wasn't dramatic or explosive. It was this, watching someone realize they'd lost something they could never get back, not because they couldn't have it, but because they'd chosen to throw it away when they thought it had no value. Sometimes the loudest statement you can make is the sound of a door closing quietly and the echo of footsteps that aren't chasing after you anymore. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, a beautiful one-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline. When it hit me, I was finally home. Not the kind of home I'd spent my entire life begging for, where love came with conditions and acceptance required payment plans. This was different. This was the kind of home you build when you stop waiting for other people to give you permission to exist. With all that money I'd been bleeding to fund my own rejection, I transformed my entire life. The $800 a month that used to disappear into their needs became investments in mine. I'd renovated my space, started therapy, enrolled in photography classes I'd always wanted to take but couldn't afford because I was too busy playing bank to people who saw me as an ATM. The silence from my family had become complete after Mom's visit. No more desperate phone calls, no more random social media stalking, no more guilt-laden text messages on holidays. They'd finally accepted what I'd been trying to tell them. I was done. But the strangest part wasn't their absence. It was how little I missed the chaos they used to bring to my life. I'd spent so many years believing that family meant tolerating disrespect because blood was supposed to be thicker than dignity. I convinced myself that love meant accepting scraps and calling them feasts, that loyalty meant funding people who wouldn't fund you back, that being a good daughter meant shrinking myself small enough to fit into whatever leftover space they had for me. I was wrong about all of it. Real family doesn't make you pay admission fees. Real love doesn't require you to audition for it every single day. Real respect isn't something you have to earn through financial transactions and emotional gymnastics. The family I'd been mourning, the one I thought I'd lost when I walked away, had never actually existed. It was a fantasy I'd been funding, a performance I'd been bankrolling, a dream I'd been subsidizing with my own self-worth. Walking away wasn't me losing my family. Walking away was how I finally came home to myself. I started building real relationships after that. Friendships with people who remembered my birthday without needing to check Facebook. Colleagues who valued my ideas without needing to see my bank balance first. A chosen family that saw me as essential, not optional. The photography classes led to weekend workshops, which led to freelance work, which led to a side business that made me happier than my corporate job ever had. Turns out when you're not pouring all your creative energy into managing other people's emotions, you have space to discover who you actually are. I learned that being the outsider, the one they could do without, had actually given me something precious: freedom. Freedom from their expectations, their limitations, their small vision of who I was allowed to become. While they were trapped in the same dynamics that had suffocated me for decades, I was building a life so beautiful that their approval would have been a downgrade. The last time I heard anything about them was through my cousin Sarah at a wedding 6 months after Mom's doorstep visit. She mentioned, almost casually, that my parents had been asking about me. "They seem really different," she said. "Smaller somehow, like they're missing something they can't quite name." I nodded politely but didn't ask for details. Their story wasn't my story anymore. That night, I wrote in my journal for what I decided would be the last time about them. Day 184. I used to think revenge meant making them hurt the way they hurt me. But real revenge is building a life so fulfilling that their absence feels like relief instead of loss. Real revenge is becoming someone so genuinely happy that their approval would feel like settling. They wanted me to disappear, and I did, but not the way they expected. I didn't disappear into shame or desperation or endless attempts to win them back. I disappeared into a version of myself they never got the privilege of meeting. The daughter who used to stand in their driveway begging to matter is gone. In her place is a woman who knows her worth, who builds her own tables instead of begging for seats at theirs, who understands that the best revenge against people who treat you as disposable is becoming absolutely indispensable to yourself. I closed the journal and put it away. Some chapters end not with resolution, but with evolution. Not with forgiveness, but with freedom. Not with them finally seeing my worth, but with me finally seeing it myself. The girl who knocked on their door that rainy night, suitcase in hand and hope in her heart, was looking for a family. The woman who walked away found something better. She found herself. And sometimes, that's not just enough, it's everything. So there you have it. Natalie Brooks, a woman who discovered that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to fight back, but to simply stop fighting for people who never fought for you. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was the loudest revenge of all. While they expected tears and begging and desperate attempts to win back their love, she gave them something far more devastating: indifference from someone who finally understood her own worth. But here's where it gets interesting, and where I want to hear from you. Was Natalie right to cut ties completely? When family treats you as disposable, do you owe them loyalty simply because you share DNA? Or do boundaries matter more than bloodlines? Some of you might be thinking she should have fought harder, confronted them directly, demanded explanations and apologies. Others might believe that walking away was the only move that preserved her dignity and sanity. The truth is, there's no perfect playbook for dealing with toxic family dynamics. Every situation is different, every heart breaks in its own way, and everyone deserves to choose healing over hurt, even when that choice looks like giving up to people who don't understand the weight you've been carrying. What would you have done in Natalie's place? Would you have stayed silent and let your absence speak volumes, or would you have confronted them head-on, demanding the respect you deserved? Would you have cut the financial support immediately, or would you have given them one last chance to make things right? And here's the bigger question. Do you think Natalie's story ends here, or is this just the beginning of something even more powerful? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me about your own experiences with family boundaries, toxic dynamics, or moments when you had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your self-respect. Your stories matter, and they might help someone else who's standing in their own version of that rainy driveway, wondering if they're worth more than the scraps they've been accepting. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we're just getting started. Next week, I'll be sharing another revenge story that proves sometimes the best way to win is to stop playing games with people who never intended to play fair. Until then, remember, your worth isn't determined by how other people treat you. It's determined by how you treat yourself when no one else is watching. See you in the next one.